Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lost Sheep Podcast. I'm Nazario Pengal here with
Cole Bissett.
and
Evan Aber.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for episode number 38. What a journey we've been on. We're back again, but first and foremost, make sure you like, you subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like. If you're on Instagram, watching Reels, anything like that, make sure you follow us on Instagram. And then if you're on audio form, make sure you follow our podcast. We have it all over as much as we can. We have Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, basically anywhere that you find your podcast. We believe that we are there. Don't forget that we have merch. We'll make sure, hopefully, to put that in the description for you guys. We have bracelets. You can reach out for us because we have those physically. If not, we also have the description to the t-shirts. So please do all that. Try to share the podcast as much as you can. We would greatly appreciate that. So yeah, that's kind of our New Year's resolution for the podcast, right? To try to plug more and try to be better
actually
about
get
that.
it out and be proactive about it. Yeah,
but we've got a great episode for you guys. Obviously, we'll do a little intro. Got a pretty solid quote, good little personal prayer practice, and then of course the shepherd of the week. So I'm not gonna preview that too much because we want you guys to continue listening to actually figure that out. But how was your guys' week so far? I think January 24th. We're nearly done with February already. Nearly done with January. And nearly into February, but 2-3 weeks into school already, kind of getting into the grind of it.
Yeah, swing is going, I think, with school. I don't know about y'all. I obviously have a lighter semester, so I'm begging teachers for assignments. I turned in one single assignment in the entirety I've been at school. I think I have another one due this afternoon, so 2 total assignments in 3 weeks. Pretty much on a roll. But yeah, we're starting to get out into labs and stuff like that. Yesterday with my stream ecology lab, we were out in up in Northport at a creek. Dude, it was so cold. The waiter, just like, you have waders on and they keep the water out, but it's just like the water's like 3 degrees, legitimately like 3 degrees Celsius. And it was just so cold. We got out of the water. It was like I couldn't feel my toes. I couldn't feel my legs. It was just like this is brutal. But class going well, school going well. Obviously, I think Cole's going to touch on this, but everyone's getting the sickness going around. So, how about you? How are you? Good?
So, yeah, like you said,
Obviously not.
Everybody's getting sick. I sound a little nasally because I was running 102-degree fever last night. Nazario said I would say it, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Didn't sleep a lick.
Addicted to the craft.
Yep. It was bad, so I didn't sleep, but I'm here. Because can't miss a Lost Sheep podcast episode if I'm capable of doing it. But yeah, week's been alright. I'd say, unlike you, I have a ton of work that I have to do at the moment with school. So that's kind of scary. Our thermo professor pretty much told us on day one that we have to pass our first quiz, and by passing means get 100 in order to pass the class. And if not, then we fail. So that's a little bit of it's a little bit intimidating, and considering I didn't go to the quiz today because they told him I was sick this morning, and he just was like, yeah, we'll just reschedule. So now I'm having
I was about to ask you when that was, so that's...
Yeah, it was today at 9, but I just slept in because I did not get any more sleep, so I needed to get whatever I could. But yeah, a little bit of a rougher week for me as far as this goes. But other than that, it was nice. Spirit and Truth Wednesday was great. I really am enjoying it this semester. Our new way of going about it definitely is interesting, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really awesome to kind of have that time period, that hour where it's different than what normal praise and worship looks like to us, and having a chance to be a little more loose with things and more contemporary, and giving a chance to focus on God for just a solid hour. I noticed it at the end of adoration last time. I was like, man, I don't even remember singing anything the whole time. I just remember literally just being in the room with Jesus. Like I was just so zoned out. I had sang and played, but didn't remember a thing. And it was awesome. So yeah, that was definitely cool. What about you?
Yeah, week's going pretty good. Cole and I have a pretty solid routine of waking up around 7:15 every day, which for me, like that's the first time that I've consistently done that during college. I've been pretty up and down where like I'll have 8 a.m. on one day, so I'll wake up. The other days I'll wake up later.
In his
So
life, actually, is that in his life? This is the first time he's ever done this in his life.
Probably. Oh, actually, no.
No.
He did it
No.
over. He did it over break
Yeah,
recently. And he was
yeah.
telling me how much. he
yeah,
enjoyed it.
so
Also, you did sports in high school, so
yeah.
some.
I,
Well,
lived, I went
also
to
high school, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But
Fair.
the first time in college, So it's been like a pretty good routine, but it feels like it's the weeks go by pretty fast. I can't believe we're almost at the end of January. But it's been pretty good. Been enjoying that. As more on Evan's side, like I'm just now starting psychology, so like 2 basic classes this semester. So they're not too bad. But for me, for psychology, you kind of got to do what they call a research assistant if you want to go on and do grad school. So I'm trying to figure that out. I joined a club called the Think Tank, which is where a bunch of students actually think of their own ideas for research, which is pretty cool. You get to actually do the research on your own instead of being an assistant to like a professor or someone that's a doctor. So we're excited about that.
Have y'all? I saw this meme where it was like January's been like 3 months. I feel like has this been a? I'm in that. I'm in that camp. I feel like January has been so long.
If you think about it, like we were at home for part of January. We
That's
had
what I'm saying.
New
Like
Year's,
I feel like it's
and then
been
like, we
forever.
came back. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you think about it in that way, yeah. But for me, the way I think about it is like college, like being back at college has been kind of January. That part of it, I think, has gone faster.
Well, I was talking to him about it the other day when we were working out, and I was like, "Dang, it feels like we've been doing this for like forever."
For
And
eons.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, and it's only been 2.5 weeks. So it's like, come on. Well, 3 weeks now. What? Since we got back, 3 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's because we had the beginning of school broken up with snow days and,
Yeah.
and MLK Day and stuff like that. So we haven't really had like we haven't had a 5-day week of school
Yeah.
yet. So
No.
let's keep that streak going, right?
But-
Snow coming.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely been a slower month. I would agree with that 100%. But Nazario has come up with a new strategy that we got from Evan for discipleship, actually. And I'm going to let him intro that. But we've had a lot of fun over the last couple days doing it since discipleship. So kudos to you, Evan, for training us. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been really nice to be able to do this. But
Yeah.
Nazario, go ahead.
So in discipleship on Tuesday, I kind of was making fun of Evan at the beginning because I thought he was misusing a word, and I was very confused. But he was using incarnational evangelization, which was his term, and I really laughed at him the first time that he said. I was like,
Yeah.
"Dude, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?"
Yeah.
And then him being the leader, this was student to teacher type of moment, where he eventually went on to explain it to us, where it made perfect sense.
Wax on, wax off.
Yeah. So, basically, what it means is it was talking about Jesus and given the example of Pope Saint John Paul II, of how they lived their lives or with their followers or with people of the world, like in their element, whether it was going skiing, going hiking, or if Jesus, he went to fish with Peter originally when he called him. So just being in their lives and not just like, oh, I'm the preacher, I'm up here on my big pulpit. It's actually being with them in life, kind of incarnational evangelization. That's what it means right there, and kind of calling us to do this more and more. And I forget what it said in there. It says that we're not a something gospel. I don't know if it said sit gospel or something like that, but we're not a gospel that just we stay back. We are, the term that I have started to use is we are a go gospel. We are going out. We are not supposed to just sit as the gospel. We are supposed to go. And so it's this term that Cole and I have been working on. And we went to play basketball on Wednesday. And I said, Cole, we're going to go gospel today. And so if you guys have ever played at the gym, there's multiple courts. You got to sit and wait for your game sometimes. So we play one game. We take the L. We got to go wait on the next circle to play the next game. But we were playing with 2 other guys that we didn't know. So I started talking to him, and Cole just like picked it up what I was trying to do, that I was trying to go gospel. So we're talking to this guy, I'm like, are you involved in anything? He's like, yeah.
Awesome.
He was like, no, I've never been involved in anything. And I think I mentioned Bama Catholic, and then Cole mentioned the events that they have. And we don't know if he'll ever come around, but we put the invite out there. We were go gospeling. We were incarnationally evangelizing because we were out there playing basketball. We weren't having a big sign that says "Come to Bama Catholic" just on the sidewalk. We were actually out there with them. So go gospel. Very very fun type of stuff. And those originally we were talking about in Bible or in discipleship, and I was like, how do you guys do this? Like, I'm never like talking to people other than around here. And I was like, okay, I need to be better about talking to people around campus, whether it's in class or at the gym or whatever it may be, to do this. So yeah, good inspiration right there.
Yeah.
For the
I think
intro.
that segues us kind of, but
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
little
no,
bit.
agreed.
But I think the one thing I do want to mention is, and I like the term "go gospel." They hadn't discussed this before we came in this morning, so I didn't know about
Everyone
this.
was totally unaware
Yeah,
of our
but
situations.
I think that the coolest thing is that we never know the effect we're gonna have on people. So I always think of it like in water biology, which I feel like this is a podcast on my class at this point. Um, we'll talk about like when water gets into rocks and it freezes and it kind of splits it, and then like it freezes and it splits it, and like the crack widens and widens. So like you can't tell the effect that one single water droplet has had, but after a time, this giant boulder can be split in half by the force of a single water droplet over 1,000 years. So that's kind of what this idea of incarnational evangelization on a spur of the moment type, like y'all did, is that we don't know the fruit of it, but later down the line, this guy goes back and he says, "Hey, like I'm really having a bad time. I remember this one time I was playing basketball with these fellas and they were talking about Bama Catholic and they really seemed to love it and enjoy it and like they seemed like they were full of it. So, maybe I go try that out." But we never know the fruit of it, right? So, yeah, but I think this leads us into our quote, well, right? Talking about great leaders, talking about Pope St. John Paul II. So, right into it, you said you were watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars,
Yeah.
which great show.
It was really episode 1.
He started it back from the
Yeah,
beginning.
we were
like,
let's turn it on,
We
and
watched the
so
whole thing.
the song comes on. You got the like image of the space, and then the letters are like coming down.
The scroll,
and then it shows the title of the episode, and then it shows this quote: "Great leaders inspire greatness in others." And I immediately got on my phone and I texted it to the group chat, and I was like, just throwing it out there. And then Cole was like, "It goes along with our discipleship talk," and I was like, "All right. Here we go. We got our quote for the week." So that's back-to-back weeks from your boy giving
Yeah.
the quote.
We're gonna
I'm
put up.
saying,
We're gonna have to put up like a board and
Yeah.
just have like we're gonna keep score right here, and
gets
it's just
us.
gonna be Nazario.
you
Well,
know,
it's
you got-
funny because it used to just be me.
it was
He was
Cole
pretty terrible
for
at
a long
finding them,
time.
like terrible. He'd
Yeah.
always be like, "What's the quote?" And I'd be like, "I don't know yet." And
Yeah.
I was like, "I feel like I forget him most of the time," but he's made a switch.
You know what? This just shows how much this quote matters because great leaders inspire greatness in others. Cole was being a great leader for our podcast originally, right? Getting all the quotes and everything like that, and doing the reels and shepherd of the week. I mean, doing the edits, so many things, and it's inspired. It's inspired this in me to now try to get some more quotes for us. And if it wasn't for Cole being that great leader, it wouldn't happen. But
And now he edits the audio. And
yeah, all jokes
does the
aside,
quotes.
who wants to start on the quote today?
All right.
for it.
Yeah. No. I'll shoot. I love this quote. I think shout out Star Wars: The Clone Wars. One of the most fantastically made TV shows of all time. I know people talk about like The Sopranos or like Breaking Bad or what's another one? Succession or something like that, right? Of these great shows. And you often lose sight of these animated shows that are equally as masterpieces but aren't critically acclaimed because they're animated. And I think that there's a lot of episodes of the Clone Wars where I had much more fun watching them than any other piece of media that I've ever taken in. So kudos to them. Wonderful job. Also, the absolute segue from when I was 15 to when I was 19 or whenever, and season 7 came out. When it was senior year of high school or maybe
They
freshman
dropped
year
it
of
during
college
COVID.
for
I'm pretty
me.
sure they dropped it during COVID.
Yeah, yeah. So, just like a crazy cultural moment for me. Yeah, but I think the the thing that this quote brings to mind firstly is standards. I think one of the things that all great leaders have in common is that they have such high standards as people. And so when you begin to look at great leaders, I know before this, Cole's looking around for something invisible.
Tissues.
Oh, um, tough luck.
It'll be somewhere. I'll get up at some point.
Um,
So just keep
you know, we're talking about military leaders, we're talking about political leaders, we're talking about religious leaders, but equally across the board, they have just high standards of production, high standards of ethics, high standards of business, whatever. And so I think when you pull that in, that's really what inspires people because you don't do that alone. If I have high standards, right, the people around me have to also have those high standards because they're not going to be compatible in my life if I want to live with high standards, right? For example, like y'all talked about, right, doing your exercise, waking up at 7:15, yada yada yada, doing all this, right? Well, with one person, that's really hard. Like if I had to wake up every day at 7:15, get up, make my breakfast, go to the gym, walk in the cold because it's so cold and my little Texas heart is just bursting right now. Um, if I had to do that all alone, like I would have a really hard time. But when you have people looking at you and people saying like, "Hey, you know, this is what we expect you to do. This is the thing that we come to you for and that we expect of you, these high standards." That's when it becomes I have to do this. I have to be that guy. Right? And so waking up at 7:15, eating the right thing becomes easier because then, you know, that's what people expect of you. That's what you hold yourself to. The second part of this is, you know, becoming a great leader is having high standards, but I also think inspiring greatness in others is about the way you hold yourself. And I'm going to draw two examples here. I'm going to draw the Bible example and I'm going to draw a more worldly example. But let's take Jesus, for instance, right? Like in the Bible, in the Gospels, they talk a lot about how Jesus wasn't inspiring because of, you know, because he looked like Thor or because, you know, he was this imposing character. But he was inspiring and he accrued followers to him because of the words he said, because of the things he did, the actions he took, right? And so that type of leader who's able to force people to really gather a following is because of who he is as a character, right? Because of what he does, because of the words he says, right? And that you have to live true to yourself in order to be that type of leader. In a real world example, you know, we can look at great military leaders. I think is a great example. Who's the guy that Sherman, the guy that led the tank brigade in North Africa, the Sherman tanks,
I think it is, yeah.
named after General Sherman from World War One. But his whole story is that basically, right, in World War One, he was this fantastic leader known for literally putting his body on the line for his troops. And so if you look back, a lot, you know, there's a lot of sketchy military leaders, but there's also a lot of military leaders who lead by that example, right? Of I'm telling you to do this, I'm saying these things, but also my actions have to back it up. And that's where we're inspired because when I see someone doing something that I want or that could improve my life or that, you know, I know is good for me, then that thing becomes a lot easier because I can look at that person and say, "Hey, like if they can be great, I can be great." Right? Um yeah. I think there's a lot of a lot of people who could be great leaders but just need a little bit of an oomph at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know, talking about the military and war, it's funny enough, my mind, I don't know if y'all, I know you have seen it, but my mind defaults to Liberty Kids. It,
What is that?
it
It's
is,
another great animated series.
like,
my
seriously,
friend.
like, I think it's very well done. It follows the stories of the American Revolution. Um,
It is made
yeah.
for like middle school history learning.
and it's one of my staples of my childhood, for sure. The theme song is just
Liberty's
so good.
Kids?
Liberty Kids.
Um, But, that always inspired me. That watching that show always really inspired me growing up,
Right there.
because it did a really good job at showing patriotism to a level that you have these kids who are traveling America during these times, like during war, and they're all in different places most of the time. Sometimes they're together, but sometimes they're at these battles and they're seeing these military leaders. And one of my favorite battles growing up was the Battle of Yorktown, the last one, the one, and I always loved Marquis de Lafayette. Like, he was just the coolest guy ever. He came in, saved the day, and blocked him off from leaving, and so that's how we won the battle. Um, but what was interesting about that one is that whole story and the whole Battle of Yorktown. The only reason is it succeeded is because it was actually, I'm pretty sure there was it was a slave at the time who he came up and he was like, I'll be a spy for you guys. Just volunteered for it. And he went in and found out that they were going to be vulnerable at this Battle of Yorktown. The British were, and so they came in and blocked them off. And the only way they were going to escape was through the water. And so he managed to get back in time, knowing that if he was caught, he was going to get executed. He managed to get back in time to tell George Washington about the whole thing. And Marquis de Lafayette swoops in and blocks them off, and the French help save the day, essentially. And so it is one of the not French, Italian.
No, it's French.
No French.
You're
Okay.
good.
The French come in and save the day, and so it's one of the most inspiring moments to me. Growing up, it's like I vividly remember that scene, and the whole spy story always was so interesting to me. Like, what does this guy have to why? Why is he doing this? I was like, at this time, he doesn't have any rights, and he's just working, and he literally voluntarily goes up and is like, let's do it, send me in there, because he has loyalty to his leaders, and he stuck with it. And it was always like, wow, he has literally everything to lose, and he's doing it anyways. Like, why? So that was always really inspiring to me. Is when you have a good leader, you don't really you get to a point where you don't really question why they're asking you to do things. You just respect it and you do it. And I think that's the same thing with what we talked about a couple weeks ago with the chalices and that you brought up with Indiana Jones. And the one chalice had poison, and the rest, or all of them had poison except for one.
Yeah.
Is you don't really question why we have these sets of rules and things. It comes to the point where you love God so much and you respect Him and you're loyal to Him that these decisions should just be easy to you, right? It shouldn't be a hard thing to do this. And so I think that was one of the coolest moments from Liberty Kids that I thought was neat.
Yeah, so we have on the quote, great leaders. I need one word from you guys. What makes a great leader before I go? Just one singular word, or if it could be two words if you need to. What makes a great leader?
Persistent discipline. I took 2 words.
Persistent discipline. And you, sir?
I think if you combine that with character.
Character. Pretty over.
That was like 6 words.
Over.
I think if you combine that.
Okay, sorry,
with
character.
Character. So obviously all great traits of great leaders that are needed. But number one, at least for me, when making a great leader, is servant leadership. So service, servant, however you want to term it in one word.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So yes, you need persistent discipline. Yes, you need character. But all of those build up into service. You have to have incredible character, incredible humility, incredible love for others to be able to be a servant. In general, just to be a leader, you have to have those characteristics, because it is so hard to be a leader. As you talked about, you have to have a certain standard. People have such a high standard for you, and that's what you're called to as a leader, is to be of service. And we see a lot in American society right now with the government. The reason that so many people can't stand the government is because so many of the politicians aren't in there for service of others. You see whatever family it may be, all of them in there, they're making a bunch of money off this. You're like, how in the world are politicians for life becoming multi-millionaires? That's not the purpose of being in government, is so that you can become rich. It's because you want to serve the people. And when we go back to persistent discipline, to be able to put the service of others ahead of yourself over and over and over again takes incredible discipline. So to be a servant leader, yes, you need those characteristics, but the goal, obviously, to be a great leader is servant leadership.
Yeah, I was reading something the other day, and I'm not going to source this, so take my words with a grain of salt, but it was some ancient civilization, and it was basically like, we're going to elect you leader. Like, their system of hierarchy worked like, we're going to elect you leader, but like, if you do a bad job, we are also going to kill you. Like, there's no like, oh, I resign, like, I did a bad job, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. It was like, oh, you do a bad job, and like, you know, like you're dead, which I think is definitely severe, right? Obviously that's pretty severe. I don't think that would fly in today's society, and I wouldn't encourage it, but I think there's some measure of accountability that has to be there in order for great leaders to persist, and the even greater leaders are the ones that persist without accountability. Like you were saying, right? I think there's a difference if we look at that and we're like, okay, well, at any time we can vote these people out, and like there's no bureaucratic system holding them in, and whatever, and whatever. That's all politics. But I'm just saying, right? Once you get into this method of accountability of saying like, okay, I have to be a great leader, not because someone's going to hold me accountable, not because someone's going to kill me, but simply because I desire to serve the people who are under me. That, yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's
and
crazy thinking.
we've seen awesome civilizations throughout history, and what sticks out most notably about the greatest times in all these different civilizations is they always have a great leader, and a lot of them are known for their great leader, whether it's Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War, whether it was George Washington during the Revolution, or whether it was Julius Caesar from the Roman Empire.
I was going to go ancient.
Yeah, wherever you're going to go, you're going to find a great leader. And when I think back of ancient times, one of the incredible things about their servant leadership is they were most notably at the forefront of the wars that they were in the battles. So the soldiers, they don't just see some general sitting way back in, the like little war room circle saying, oh, you should go here, let's strategize here. No, they were out there serving with those soldiers, which probably created an incredible inspiration for them that we really don't get nowadays for, specifically for military service. But if you want to inspire greatness in others, you have to be able to serve them, and they're going to see that characteristic come out in you, and that's going to make them want to do it. So then, by being a great leader and being a servant leader, you're creating an entire society full of servants, which overall creates the best type of society, best type of community, best type of civilization that is possible. One that is working for all the common good for the right reasons. We see like all these different types of parties or different political avenues that want to like, oh, we want to have the greater good of the entire society.
Factions, all these factions, yeah.
That's what they're saying. We want to have the greatest good. We want to do things because they choose this because it's for the greatest good of the community. Well, if you have an entire community that is all working to serve each other, that is how you create that. And that's the amazing thing about the Catholic Church, all of Christianity, is that we're supposed to be one body in Christ, and we're supposed to be serving each other. And hopefully we have great leaders to look up to in our churches, but most notably, we have Jesus Christ, the number one servant leader of all time, the greatest leader of all time, as you talked about. And I've been reading with this book about the apostles and how almost every apostle was taken from Galilee. Jesus was from Galilee. And to be honest, I don't know if I ever learned this or thought about this before, but Galilee was basically like the rural part of Judea.
Yeah.
So all the people from Jerusalem, when they're seeing Jesus, when they're seeing the apostles saying all these things, they're looking down on them because they're not educated. They're farmers, that's the type of outlook they have on these people. And as you talked about Jesus, he's not looking like Thor out there. He doesn't, but it's his character. Why did he inspire so many people? Because he was a servant leader. Jesus' entire reason for coming to earth was for other people. So just, you always have that inspiration and example to draw on of what makes a great leader. But then he inspired it throughout all the apostles, throughout all of time since he came down from earth. All these people that follow Jesus and that are trying to advance the church and trying to follow him. they draw from him because he was such a great servant leader, because they want to follow somebody like that. So whether you are, trying to become a great leader or trying to learn how to follow a leader, it always goes back to service.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest parts on that is I love the story in the Bible at Pentecost when the disciples come out, the apostles come out, and they start speaking in tongues and whatnot. All the people start saying, like, are these men not Galileans? Like, are these not our brothers, like people we grew up with? And, a lot of people are like, oh, they're from Galilee. Like, they think they should speak Hebrew or something. But it's because they're from Galilee. Like, they're from, like, farm town USA. It's like if somebody from, I don't know, like rural Texas, or somebody from,
Rural Alabama.
yeah, rural Alabama, like came out and started speaking crazy languages to you. Like, I would be confused. And I would say to these people, like, I would be like, are you not from, Enterprise? Like, what are you doing? And it's not because they're like, oh yeah, they should speak Hebrew, they're Galilean, but it's because, like, oh man, like, these people who aren't supposed to be educated, these people who aren't supposed to know these things do. But I love that story. It's so cool. Yeah, I think.
To draw back to the Apostles book, I have to just quote this.
What
real
book is
quick.
this? What book is
It's
this?
called Ordinary Men.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, it's all about how all the apostles are just ordinary men in their own stories, and how the great leader Jesus inspires greatness in all of them. So just great book. It's actually from my girlfriend Caitlin's grandma, Mimi.
Shout out Caitlin's grandma,
Shout out.
Mimi.
So she got me that for Christmas. It's been a great book. But one thing that I've never actually thought about that I just have to mention, doesn't really have to go along with the quote, but I had to shout him out here. Everyone usually calls St. Thomas, the Apostle Thomas, Doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Technically, that is actually an overestimation and just a stereotype. All of the apostles did not believe that Jesus had resurrected until they saw him in the upper room. And I just read that today, and I was like, hey, shout out Thomas. That he gets this, doubting Thomas type of outlook. And while he was normally a more of a pessimistic person, he actually wasn't the only one to do that.
Well, but I think,
interesting.
yeah, I'd always got the impression that they called him Doubting Thomas because it wasn't until the second, like 11, or at that point, I guess 10, they hadn't voted in Matthias or whatever, right? Or maybe they had. Chronology is hard here. But all 10, 11 of them had seen Jesus in the upper room. He wasn't there. And they came back to him and they're like, dude, like, these people who had literally been traveling with him for years were like, Jesus is back. Like,
well, to go back on that,
his mom is in the like.
Mary Magdalene saw Jesus come out of the tomb, went back to the apostles. They didn't believe her. Then the people on the road to Emmaus that talked with Jesus, they went back, told the apostles. So yes, the apostles said this to Thomas, but they also didn't listen to other people until they saw Jesus. Just interesting to think about. Yeah. So, which is crazy when we think about this great leader Jesus inspiring greatness in others. They had to be pushed so hard. Jesus had to serve so much. Not only did he have to live with them for 3 years and try to teach them, then die for them in this service, and then resurrect. He had to come to them multiple times and be like, guys, I resurrected. I came back. Like, I'm here. Please go share this message. They had to be pushed so much. And sometimes that's what it takes from a great leader. And persistent discipline. Jesus had to keep going and going and going and going and keep serving and serving and serving. So if you're trying to be a great leader, just work on service and you'll have a great start.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about consistency then. I think let's go PPP.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So last week we talked about morning prayer. This is something that y'all two had, Cole's over there, y'all two had kind of talked about. We spoke. I'm doing my morning prayer as a morning walk prayer. I'm listening to my rosary in a year as I walk to class or whatever my first engagement of the day is. How is that going for you? Good?
Consistent? Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Consistently disciplined about your morning prayer?
Yeah, I actually have been. Just right when I get out of bed. It's funny. I have what do they call that? A mattress topper. So it kind of leans over my actual mattress.
Can never get in position directly
never.
on the bed.
It moves awfully. But I get up out of bed and I will I'm still tired. I don't really want to wake up. And so I drop to my knees to pray in the morning, and I fall against my bed, and I just lay my head against my mattress topper, but I'm on my knees, so it's forcing me to pray. And then I have this little cross just on my wall in my room. And so it's great to just be able in the morning to just kind of surrender myself to God for the day right away. And it takes that discipline. Obviously, it's in the morning. Like, I really just want to get back into bed and go back to sleep. But you just, like, you offer your day right there to God. So morning prayer has been, it's been pretty darn good. Cole is over there working with his sickness, but he has talked about this being pretty good for him as well. So we're not the best at doing our PPPs all the time, but this one has been pretty solid. Cole, if you want to talk about your experience with it.
I'm alive. I'm back. Hopefully I don't have to leave again. We'll have to see. But it's been great. I've been doing a prayer by Saint Therese of Lisieux. Morning prayer. It's been awesome. A really good way to start off the day. It's shorter, but just first thing I do in the morning. Get up, get on knees, pray. I was telling him the other day, I was like, it's awesome just to have it. Like, I love it. I love doing it in the morning, and the first thing you do is that. So that's been great, and I actually challenges my guys in discipleship with morning prayer this week.
So, at my girlfriend's house, they have this game called the Catholic Card Game, which I don't know if y'all have ever seen before, but it's like apples to apples, or like Cards Against Humanity, but Catholic. And one of the cards that I drew the other day was receiving a rose after finishing your novena to Saint Therese of Lisieux. And so I was unfamiliar with this, but fun fact, once you finish the novena to Saint Therese of Lisieux on her feast day or whatever, right, the day before her feast day or whenever you decide to do that, supposedly like flowers are supposed to be given to you or show up in your life, which I thought was really cool. I'd never seen before, but very interesting Therese of Lisieux fact. Yeah.
So, moving on to our PPP for this upcoming week, we are going to do night prayer. So you have to talk about morning prayer, like dedicating, cutting out the time right when you wake up in the day for this prayer. Continue to do that. It's a great, what's the word I'm looking for here? Routine to start your day. It's a great thing to keep doing. And now we're going to move into night prayer, where you have this dedicated, cut out time before you go to bed. And for me, what I'm going to try to do is read a passage of scripture or a little bit of something to meditate on and just think about when I'm about to go to bed, and hopefully just like fall asleep meditating on that. And for me, I think when you're about to go to bed, like to actually, talk to God and have more of like a structured prayer is a little bit more difficult because you're sleepy and you're tired. But I feel like meditative prayer, just thinking about it and letting it just flow through your mind while you're relaxing and getting ready for bed could be a pretty useful tool. That's what I'm going to try. Do you guys have any ideas for what you could do for night prayer?
Yeah, I will say, we talk about a lot this idea of like prune and add, and for our episode right before Lent starts, I want to maybe a little hint, it might be our PPP, but where can I prune, where can I add? And I think night prayer is a good opportunity to do some of that, because I think oftentimes like right before I go to bed, I'm on my phone or watching TV or something like that. Meditative prayer is a fantastic opportunity. You have to be careful, obviously, because like if you're sitting in your bed and you're gonna fall asleep. But I think I agree with you. A lot of my night prayer is much more conversational. It's obviously a different type of prayer and a little more difficult than what you may be used to with rote prayer. But it's a great opportunity to sit down and form a personal relationship with Christ. Just in the method of drop your day to him, share your struggles, share your successes. That's very important. Share your successes, and just to be able to kind of have like that fatherly or that brotherly relationship with him that he wants with us. But yeah, usually my night prayer is much more informal, much more or much less structured, and much more like spur of the moment. Let's have a conversation, which I find helps me to relax and wind down. And at the end, I always finish with watch over me while I sleep and protect me when I wake, is my intonation at the end of all of my night prayers. But yeah.
For me, I'll probably do another saint prayer for the evening and angel of God prayer too. Get that in there. But it's interesting because that's actually quite different than me. For me, my conversational prayer happens throughout the day. And that's just kind of how it works for me. And I like having a saint prayer in the morning or a saint prayer in the evening, or just something that's more, I guess, routine. And so I like having those to kind of just keep to close and open my day every day. But my conversational prayer will happen when you do walking prayer. That's when my conversational prayer probably happens, or before mass whenever we go in. Or after before I get a confession, just things like that where I just want to talk to God. But that's how it works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys figure out whatever works best for you with your night prayer, and hopefully you figured out something this week with your morning prayer that you can continue. But we're gonna move on to our Shepherd of the Week. Cole, is it the first time we've had a Shepherd of the Week that is not a real human being?
What are you talking about?
It might be. It really might be.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I no, that's shocking.
Okay.
I'm like with you two and having like movies and shows.
Seriously?
I'm very surprised that this is the first time
Yeah.
you are gonna have a non-real
Yeah.
Shepherd of the
You're
Week.
totally right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never done it.
All right, so if you have any idea, any guesses, you can pause the episode and put it in the comment section who you think it is. That's a fun little guessing
George
game.
Lucas.
Think George Lucas.
We already
Cole
talked about
says.
Star Wars.
Yeah. So they're giving it away. It is a Star Wars character. It is the one, the only Yoda, one of the great leaders of the entirety of Star Wars. Some could argue the best leader in all of Star Wars. But he exemplifies this quote wonderfully: with great leaders inspire greatness in others. And we always see Yoda when he's older. It would be very interesting to see what Yoda was like when he was younger. But from the get-go of what we see in Star Wars, he's always inspiring. What are you doing that look for?
What do you mean? What do you mean? It will be very interesting. All right, did I miss out on some Star Wars announcements?
What?
It will be very
It would.
interesting
I
to
said
see.
it
Oh,
would be
I thought
interesting.
you said it
That's
will.
what
I was like,
I
did I?
was just smiling 'cause
I missed out on like
no.
a
It would
very
be
large
interesting.
announcement.
Grogu is a good preview of what the
Yeah, but it would be interesting to see Yoda when he was younger, to see what he was like. But we always see him as this elder, and he's always trying to figure out how to make his students, his Padawans, better. And it could be anywhere from all the young ones that unfortunately die in Revenge of the Sith, from all the way up to some of the great Jedi's like Obi-Wan Kenobi. He still has to learn from Yoda, but Yoda always in service of others, always trying to inspire greatness in others. But I think one of the interesting points, not to put Yoda on some pedestal or anything, but a good comparison is how Yoda takes the pain and feels the pain of all the anguish that happens in Star Wars compared to our Lord, and we can see how he really does care for all of his people and all the people that he's trying to serve, and we can see the anguish that he has, and we see in Yoda, I'm just thinking of the scene on I can't remember the name, wherever all the Chewbacca people are. Do you remember their name?
Kashyyyk.
Yeah, on
The
Kashyyyk.
planet is Kashyyyk.
And Order 66 is happening.
No. The planet is Kashyyyk and they're Wookiees. Yeah.
Okay.
Wookiees, yes. And Order 66 is happening, and you see Yoda just you can see it on his face. It's right before he does the wicked jump and cuts the two heads off of the clone troopers. One of the coolest scenes of all of Star Wars. But yeah, he always has the anguish because he cares, because he's a great leader. And he inspires greatness in others.
I think it's kind of ironic that he's the shortest character in the entire show, but or the entire show and movie, because he's also kind of the biggest and most important factor in everything.
But if you think about it, Jesus stooped down to the lowest of low to
that's
serve him.
Not comparing Jesus
Not
to
comparing,
Yoda, but
just we get
drawing
great imagery and
connections.
symbols.
It's very ironic, and he does play very much this leadership role throughout the entirety of the series. And he's very mysterious. He likes to guide people in the right direction, but not all. He's also not going to 100%. I don't know if there's any time in a movie or in the show where Yoda demands somebody to do something. It kind of always seems like he's just trying to hint at things. It's very much which again you could say is very similar to the thing. It's like he's still letting people make mistakes. He lets Anakin be stupid, and Anakin gets reprimanded for it. But wait,
I mean, he definitely does.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then I'm thinking of the scene in A New Hope where A New Hope. Would it become New Hope when he goes when Luke sees him?
No, that's 5.
That's 5? Okay.
Yeah. Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. And Luke goes and sees him, and he's kind of asking for help, and he's kind of confused because he has no idea who this dude is. For some reason, my brain always defaults to the funny parody of that scene. What was it? The
Seagulls.
yeah, Seagulls.
Mm.
It's a funny music video. You should watch it. It's a long kind of chat. Anyways,
I always love the bad lip readings.
That's what we're talking about.
What? Run, and jump. I
Yeah.
can be a backpack while you run. Yeah, it's funny because he also is. Yeah, he is like a backpack for a lot. That's how he gets around. Is he hops on the back of these other Jedi's and they'll just take him wherever the heck he wants to. He's a very smart guy. He kind of plays the role as who's the baboon in Lion King. It's very similar sort of vibes if you're looking at the two.
Rafiki,
Rafiki.
dude. Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever shared this with y'all, but I'm like a massive Star Wars fan. I'm pretty.
Never known that.
You didn't know that? Okay, so actually, in my room, I have like all of, like,
Posters.
no, all of the Legos.
Oh, that's sick.
So like, I have like AT-AT, Death
Is this
Star,
that- oh,
Millennium
those are
Falcon, the
yeah.
Tantive. They're
Jeez.
actually when I
You bought the Millennium Falcon?
yeah.
He's the Death Star. man.
Yeah.
It's
So when I
Exclusive Lego set
graduated,
these days.
I'll show you after. But when I graduated high school, I broke down the entirety of my collection into their individual bags. So they're sorted in a bin by like the bag, like bag 1, bag 2, bag 3, and by set at home. And they're all labeled, and they have all the manuals and boxes and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I am a huge Star Wars nerd. Anyway, one of my favorite metaphors from Yoda, and it's what you were talking about in The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke goes and Yoda uses him as like a backpack carrier. Like, I never got it, right? Because like when Luke is succeeding, he has Yoda on his back. Like, think about it. The only time Luke fails is when he's doing the handstand and he's trying to lift rocks with his mind, and Yoda isn't on his back. He's not carrying him with him, right? But he is not carrying him with him. Like, he's not carrying the ideas, the things, the teachings that he's instilled with him, right? I like to think about that scene that way. Yoda is, like you were saying, one of those guys that never actually answers the question. He always lets you do your own thinking. He's such an empath too. Y'all stated that he feels the pain. He like clutches at his chest. But he's also willing to do the dirty work, right? Like, he's willing to go on missions and whatever. But he's still a great teacher. And I also think the second bit, and something that we didn't talk about today, but whatever. Great leaders know when to pass on the torch. And so there's the scene at the end of The Empire Strikes Back. False. At the end of 6, where
Jedi.
yes, where Luke comes to Yoda and he's in his hut and he's like, "Is Leia my sister?" And Yoda's like, or whatever, "There is another," or something, and rolls over and like disappears, right? So like in that moment, Yoda knows that he's ready. Yoda knows, and he's passing on the torch to him. And so as a great leader, yes, he can train the next generation. Yes, he has massive skill. Yes, he's a servant. But also he knows that when his time comes for him no longer to be a leader, it's time to accept that there are other people who can lead better or at just as good as you. And so he's willing and able to step down and say that, there are people better at this than I am. I think that's one of the things I love the most about Yoda is because even when he's even when he's close to death, even when he's at his weakest, he's still probably stronger than 90% of the Jedi that are in the show. But yet, he knows that, it's my time to go because I've taught everything I can and I'm ready. So
that's our shepherd of the week, Yoda, the one and only. And now onto our outro and our final thoughts on just great quote, great discussion on great leaders inspire greatness in others. And guys, I have tried my absolute hardest. We've gone the entire episode and we haven't talked about sports yet. I mean, can we just give it up for me for a second?
Asking for it
I-
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
shout out, congratulations to the 2025 NCAA college football playoff champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
All right, he got
Roll
it.
the banner.
He got
National
it in.
champions.
He got it in. Anyways, we haven't talked about sports yet. And I think one of the great reasons that I have come to know more about and love sports even more is because of coaching, because of the servant leadership that coaches must have. But first, before I get onto that, I'm going to go with what you said about knowing when to pass the torch. We see in sports how so many players, so many coaches fail to know when it is time to quit. Just this morning, Pete Carroll is becoming the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He is 73 years old.
Hey,
dude, hang it
okay,
up.
yeah, I just struggle. I just struggle.
There is a time and there is a place. Bill
but
Belichick.
he knows.
Go hang out with your 25-year-old
He
girlfriend.
knows. Look, Pete Carroll knows something that we don't. Guys like that, like they live and breathe the sport, right? Like those are guys who.
You don't think Yoda lived and breathed the Force?
Well, but I talk about like Pep Guardiola, and I know you're gonna get, but like when City was losing, like they lost their 6th game in a row or whatever, and he showed up to the like news conference and he had like scratches down his face and he was like, I got a little passionate on the sidelines, you know, and like stuff like that. Like these guys breathe and like live the sport, and so if you're just like, oh yeah, like go hang it up, they're like, well, like what do I do all day? Like what he's been a coach for what, like 50 years now, right? Like he was a GA, and now he's 73 and he's coaching another team. But also great hire by the Raiders. Let's talk about that from a statistical standpoint. You had a lot of guys who don't know how to win games. You gave a lot of first-year coaches, a lot of new guys chances. You brought in somebody who knows how to win, proves he can do that, and also a guy who is a defensively minded genius. Like, look at what he did with what was the name of Legion of Boom, Richard Sherman, Chancellor, like all those guys. Like, fantastic opportunity for the Raiders. They have a pretty good defense. I'm gonna love seeing Max Crosby under Pete Carroll. That's gonna be so scary. Yeah, if they can figure out the offense, hire a good OC, dude, that's gonna. I respect the Raiders for this pickup. That's a fantastic opportunity.
And if you think about it, I'm kind of pushing back on my own argument, what I said about hanging it up, now that I think about it. Because as you talked about, they live and they breathe it. But they don't live and breathe it just because they love the sport of football and that they love winning. They love the process of doing it. And every day in, day out, going and watching film, going and trying to perfect their schemes and everything like that. But the great thing about these sports is they're able to be these servant leaders for everyone on their roster. And they're trying to make them better. What does Nick Saban talk about? This standard. You try to get better every single day. We heard Jalen Milroe talk about it all the time, trying to be the best version of yourself every single day. And so these football coaches, like, that's what I've been trying to do this whole time, is trying to get my players to understand the process of getting better each and every day. And I've heard 2 things this week from college coaches. One, got to give props to the man on Monday night, Ryan Day, won the national title, and at his post-game interview, post-game press conference, nearly everything he said was about his players, was about his team, and that's what he did it for. I mean, that dude goes through some absolute crimes, the things that gets said to him. After he lost the Michigan game, I mean, I think there was Ohio State fans that literally would have murdered him, like, if they were allowed to.
I will say,
absolute ridicule.
It's a blessing for the rest of the Big Ten because he's proven time and time again that he can't win a big game. And so this is like an absolute blessing because he's going to get a 7-year contract, and then Michigan's going to beat him 8 more times over the next 7 years. So.
You can think whatever you think, but the point is Ryan Day gave so much credit to his players, and you could see that the reason that he did it really is for his players. And for a lot of coaches, that's what they have to do. They don't get to see their families a lot. They have to spend so much time on their sport, and they do it for the love of their players. Now, that's not all coaches, obviously. There's some coaches that have, very prideful thoughts and prideful ideas, and I'm sure they all have to deal with that in their own way. But to see that type of coach winning at the highest level, giving the credit to his players, pretty awesome. And then I heard an interview yesterday from Brett Bielema, if you guys know who that is, the Illinois head coach, just talking about how much it means to see his players succeed. And he's a great offensive line coach. So he's had multiple offensive linemen go in the first round, and then his first offensive lineman to go in the first round was Joe Thomas, and he was able to go to his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. How incredible it was to see this player that he had helped get there, how incredible that was. It all just goes back to servant leadership, and that's what it takes. And when you are that servant leader, you are going to inspire greatness in others, and that's when you get to see the fruit of it, is when you see other people that you've inspired to be great.
it's kind of funny because if you we're gonna go back to Nick Saban on this one. Recently he revealed some of his favorite players to coach on some interview he was doing recently. He had, it was guys like Julio, Derek, and he said it's funny. He said because my favorite players were the ones that were in my office because they did something stupid the most. And he says because I actually grew really fond of them, and I got closer with them, and eventually these guys turned out pretty good. And so it's again like showing how important it is to be that servant leader and be able to respect the players just as much as your own and be equals. With Pep, starts off you have young Pep going to Barcelona, and another thing is that gives you success as a coach is definitely confidence. Like that's a really big thing. When Pep was there, he promised all the players, he's like, we're going to be a winning team. Like this is the first thing to do. And he created one of the scariest teams of all time. Through the 4-year stretch that he had that really solid group, and it was scary. Like you don't want to play Barcelona during that time. That's it. That's death right there on the soccer field. You don't play it. And then he goes and coaches Man City and brings them to arguably be one of the better teams of all time. Probably not the greatest, but definitely one of the better ones. So it's interesting because the things that he will emphasize over and over and over again is his confidence is really big, and he cares a lot for his players. He really does. He still has Kevin De Bruyne playing, and De Bruyne's like ancient now, and he's still giving
Ancient. He's 33.
He's ancient for soccer, but he's it's just interesting because he's still giving him, and he said he's still performing, and we're going to keep him here for as long as we can. So it's neat to have coaches like that.
Yeah, get an audio clip of this because I don't say it often, but I got nothing more to share. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you all for tuning in. Before you sign out, if you have any questions that you would like to ask the podcast, that you would like for us to talk about, we are trying to get questions together to do a mailbag episode where we just pull it out and we just answer questions. We think it would be a wonderful episode to give to you guys. Yes, if you are here at Bama Catholic, we are going to put a bowl out, hopefully, for you guys at the Saban Center. It's for you to just with little slips to write down questions.
You can't do an anonymous poll on like Instagram or something?
We could do a poll on Instagram. We're going to do a comment section, wherever you guys would like to submit your questions. We would love, love, love to have them. They could be about anything. They don't technically have to be just about Catholicism, Christianity. You could throw out a random question like, why does Evan wear his hat backwards? Something, anything like that.
I did realize halfway through this that, I wear my hat backwards because you can't see me if I wear it frontwards, but I have not been in a single episode where I wasn't wearing a hat.
That's true.
So, but they know I have hair because I do this periodically throughout the episode. But yeah, like I guess this is just gonna be the shtick now. Like I don't have hair, so anyway.
Yeah, but any type of question you guys would like to ask, we will hopefully be able to get that up let's pick a goal of like within the next month if we can get enough questions. I think 3 to 5 questions will probably be enough. To be honest with you, but we can get more.
If we do a poll on Instagram, we at least get like 20.
Yeah. So
people respond.
Any type of question y'all want to ask, anonymous, not anonymous, doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. But as always, thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week. God bless.